Ladies and gentlemen, for the ones in attendance and the millions watching around the world, the Big Bag Network presents the High Flying Podcast.
This is the High Flying Podcast where we be drop kicking it with the boys. So make sure to body slam that like, share, and subscribe button. I am your host, Biggie Bag Johnny, back with another video. And today we a little late, man. We recorded this, but then it didn't record. It did one of those things that we had to do before when this thing first started, man. Couple weeks ago, but we're back at it, man. Dark Side of the Ring. You know it's my favorite. This is one of my favorite episodes. Yes, we watched it already, man. This is definitely my favorite episode of the season. It gets dark, man. We all know it's Sherri. Sensational Sherri, ladies and gentlemen. You know her. She was with King Booker and the Harlem Heat. She was with Jake the Snake. She was paired with Shawn Michaels on her, and she was on the song with Shawn Michaels. Man, she's done so much. This woman is so beautiful. Her character was just crazy, entertaining, man. And we gonna dive right into it, man. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. You tuned into the High Flying Podcast, and we are now in the Dark Side of the Ring. We are talking about the sensational Sherri. Let's go.
You want a piece of me, little girl? Well, come and get it, because you're looking at a woman that invented mean.
Sherri Martel was a chameleon, a performer who broke new ground for women in the wrestling business, an in-ring natural that made it all look effortless.
She was an ace. Sensational Sherri was a top-line ringer. Look at the 80s and you look at Sherri's role in some of the biggest storylines, the biggest moments, the biggest pay-per-views. My God, she was a huge star.
Inside the ring and outside the ring, and on the microphone and on camera, she was perfect. She was really the only great female manager of modern times.
You, Hulk Hogan, are the one that had a failing career. You!
Whatever the gimmick, she would do whatever it needed. Everybody in the business knew that.
But few knew of the sacrifices that Sherri's total commitment to becoming a star demanded.
Her demons took over. She said she didn't want to be a caged bird.
And the high cost of her trailblazing success.
She worked hard, man. She paid a price, too.
I knew she was in pain, but you don't work, you don't get paid. It pushed her the wrong way.
No punches pulled! No nothing!
It became more obvious that she was having issues.
If you can't get your act together, you need to step off Team Harlem Heat.
There were skeletons throughout her whole life. Some people can get over it, and some people can't.
Honestly tell me how much of that is fake. I have a job and I go out there and I get everything that I got. I run all these miles up and down the road and I wear my body out. That's not fake. My body gets slammed on that damn canvas and on the outside of the ring I get sent to the hospital. I get glass in my damn eyes. That's not fake.
Sherri was tough physically, but also she was tough somewhat mentally. She could take some of the abuse that she got from the fans or from the other wrestlers, and that's why the guys liked working with her. She was all in. I'm Jim Cornette. For almost 40 years, I've done everything in pro wrestling, especially managing, and Sherri Martel was the first person I ever managed.
That I have signed up, and I would like to introduce Miss Sherri Martel.
I've had people ask me, how did you decide to take Sherri Martel as a client? Well, I didn't.
Can I make an investment or can I make an investment?
In 1982, both of us were just getting started. Sherri was just a rookie wrestler, and we were kind of thrown together just because the promoter knew that I needed some kind of practice. So we looked at each other and said, you're greener than goose shit, and I'm even worse. How can this possibly go wrong? We bonded from that moment.
Money talks and you know what works.
She wasn't the over-the-top personality that you would see from Sherri Martel 5 years later or 10 years later. But at that point, nobody knew she was going to be not only one of the great female wrestlers of the next generation, but also one of the most high-profile managers in wrestling. She was just a girl who wanted to be a wrestler at that point. You didn't know how far she was going to go.
I know you all want me, but you can't have me.
Sherri was a diva before the divas were divas. Once she got in that ring, different person. The minute she got out of that ring, a sweetheart. I'm Kathy Fitzpatrick, and Sherri Martel was my best friend. We kind of had the same kind of childhood. She didn't know her dad. Her mom would take her to wrestling shows, and she liked it.
My mom would go to wrestling matches in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and there was a livestock arena. It was a great wrestling atmosphere, and the seed was planted at that point. I was just always be rebel. I always wanted to do something different than everybody else.
I met Sherri Martel in 1974. I'd say at the time she was probably 17, and I was 18. I was a referee for Midsouth Wrestling, and she was a fan. I remember Sherri being in the front row watching the shows. One night in Lafayette, Louisiana, we met, we talked, and it moved forward very fast. Rillian Smith is my legal name. Jake the Snake Roberts is how most people might know me.
What's going through that evil mind? Tremendous call. He did it!
Sherri and I had spent some raw time together. We were on again, off again for about 4 or 5 years. Just her walking into a room, she was a star. I mean, that's just how captivating she was. She was beautiful, but she wasn't your typical, oh, dainty, printy girl. She was a kick an ass in your face girl. Was I in love with her? I was in love with something. There was that connection. Both of us wanting something that seemed so far out of reality. It seemed like we'd never get to the big show or to the WWE or even Mid-South.
He's out for blood. He's not out to wrestle.
Sherri Martel wanted to be a wrestling star from the get-go.
In those days, there were no training programs that were advertised. You had to just hang around until somebody was willing to take a chance on you if you wanted to be involved in wrestling. Grizzly Smith at the time was a road agent and a matchmaker for Mid-South Wrestling. And if he would see prospective talent, he would take an interest in it.
I had went to Grizzly Smith when I was 16 years old. He was Jake Roberts' father, and I told him I wanted to learn how to wrestle. He told me to come back when I was 21.
Dreaming of being a wrestling star, but with no avenue to begin her training, by 1976, Sherri is living and working in New Orleans.
She was gorgeous, had a good sense of humor, and we got along. I'm Leroy Gonzalez, and I'm the ex-husband of Sherri Martel. June of 1976. I was in training in a restaurant, and she was sitting in a booth and complained about a roach in the booth. I just looked up at her and said, I wish I'd have been that roach. So she says later on, she says, why don't you come and meet me and have a drink? She was working across the street. I didn't know where I was going really, and so when I walked in, I realized it was a club.
Yep, and Shorty was one of those. Sherri was a stripper, and she got her John, and you could tell by the pictures that nigga was a straight trick. Hey, yo, but her baby daddy is hilarious, man. Y'all gotta check this out, man. It's fucking... Just check it out, man. Sherri was a wild one, man. You gonna see.
And she was on stage. After her dance was over, she came and sat down. We got to talking, and she just swept me off my feet. She was wanting to get out of that business, and I bought a trailer, and she moved in with me. One day I come in from work, got on her knee, and asked her to marry me. but she'd go out with her girlfriends and party, yes. But any drug, marijuana, uppers, mollies, downers, quaaludes, cocaine, we got into some pretty heated discussions about it, and it just never stopped. At that time, she wanted to have a family. And we had Jared in July of 1978. He wanted a child, now we have one. Time to put your big girl pants on and take care of the child. Couldn't take it. When she told me she was going to pursue a career in wrestling, I laughed at her. I had no idea. She left when the baby was like 3 months old.
And I know it hurt, it bothered her. But sometimes you have to do what you have to do.
Sherri moves to Memphis, where she again finds work as an exotic dancer while continuing her search for a way to break into the wrestling business.
In those days, there was always some independent or what we call outlaw wrestlers around a major wrestling city.
And I went to a school that Butch and Moore had in Memphis. I told him that I wanted to learn how to wrestle. He got up and he slapped the living hell out of me. And at that point, I looked at him and I said, "Is that all you've got?"
There you go, outlaw wrestler. Here, let me slap you and see if you're tough enough. What the is that? I would have been interested to see if she slapped him back if he could handle it.
I mean, I didn't care how male-dominated it was. I was going to succeed in this. Oddly, and I told Grizz, I've got a year of training under my belt. I threw my driver's license out at him. I said, I'm 21 now. I'm ready. I had a son. I'm divorced. I said, this is what I want to do. And he says, why? I said, because I think that I can be the best person that I possibly can be. This is the career that I want. And he said, okay.
Tell me about her skills in the ring.
Great. Ask my sister. Rockin' Robin.
The first time I met Sherri was when she would come in town, and often she would stay actually at my father's house. I'm Rockin' Robin, and I defeated Sherri Martel for the WWF Women's World Title.
History made here, new ladies champion, Rockin' Robin.
Like a lot of the other girls, if they were in town, I would go and hang out with them. I guess try to make them more comfortable. My father, Grizz, he had a liking, very much for younger girls.
I mean, he was a no good son of a bitch, man. Actually, she was a little old for his wheelhouse.
I would go to the matches and watch her wrestle. Sherri could be strictly business, even at that young of an age. She had those rough edges, but that's what made her Sherri.
After Grizzly saw, well, we've given her the basics, she needs to go to work with Moolah to continue her career.
The Fabulous Moolah!
The Fabulous Moolah was not only the world women's champion wrestler for 30-something years, but also she booked all the women wrestlers to the various territories around the United States. So if you were an aspiring female wrestler, you almost had to not only be trained by Moolah, but then stick with Moolah and work as part of her troupe. And one of the most adhered to rules was that you have to give Moolah her booking kickback, or elsewise you're in serious trouble. It was almost like a military school type of operation for lady wrestlers.
We did what Moolah told you. I figured that if I was going to make it in this business and I got to her camp, and there was nothing that was going to stop me.
Moolah had a lot of rules. There were curfews. The girls had to be in at certain times. And Moolah said at the time, she was just into that nightclub. And darling, that was just too much for me. And Moolah asked her to depart the compound. Once Sherri got away from Moolah, she was able to create more of her own personality and get over on her own merits rather than somebody else telling the promoter how to use her.
In the months after Sherri leaves her husband and infant son behind to pursue wrestling, Leroy struggles to put their family back together.
I was trying to get her to come back home. I hired a private investigator to follow her, and I found out where she was at and some of the things that she was up to. I was making a night deposit at the bank, and 3 big guys walked up to me and point blank told me, hey, leave Sherri alone. She belongs to us. I have no idea if they were just friends of Sherri, if it had anything to the Wrestling Association. When they said she belongs to us, well, she belongs to wrestling. I left her alone after that.
Yo, that is funny. Every time I see that part, I left her alone after that. Shit. I ain't fuck with her no more. She belonged to the streets of wrestling. Good old wrestling. Go subscribe to the channel, man. The High Flying Podcast, man. We out here. We got mad shit to talk about after this one. Sensational Sherri. You know what it is, man. Let's go.
After stints in Japan and Midsouth wrestling, by the mid-1980s, Sherri Martel is working as a wrestler and manager in the AWA, a regional promotion based in Minneapolis.
Vern Gagne in the AWA, that's one guy that had never had a relationship with the fabulous Moolah. That was good for Sherri because he could book any girl or anybody else he wanted to book.
Now we know who's a better woman. I told you she was crazy.
There were never a lot of lady wrestlers in the AWA, but the ones that they picked and that they did use were very accomplished. And Sherri was physical and she could dish it out.
Beating her over the head with that belt.
Sherri knew the business, and her psychology was on point. Her timing was incredible. Hey guys, WWE Hall of Famer, known as Alundra Blaze and Medusa.
From Robbinsdale, Minnesota, Medusa Michelli.
I looked up to her a lot, and kind of trying to emulate what she did and how strong she was, even though she was caving inside in so many ways. I went over to her house, and I remember her saying that her son was away. Having a child in this business was frowned upon for women. So her son, I felt, was purposely not to the forefront, for she was really trying to do something with her career.
Man, sensational Sherri. She's all right.
I'm sorry to drivers. My mother was a legend showing myself. I'm not in the best of health now. It's not easy. I want the pay.
I think he has cancer, even though he's never said it straight out to me. From what I understand, he lost part of his tongue due to cancer.
This is what the person does. Don't judge her for what she did. I was always taken care of, and she made sure of it. In a way, she made the best decision for me.
Sherri had him, but Pat raised him. Jared was 3 years old when we told him who his mother is.
My oldest memory was a magazine, and it was published in Japan.
We started making arrangements for Jared to fly out and meet her. Supposed to be for a week and ended up maybe 2 days. She'd send him back.
Did that make you angry as a kid that you couldn't see your mom more often?
I'm so angry.
It was very difficult for women to even have a relationship, let alone have a child. And I feel that it really took a toll on women mentally, because we were trying to push the envelope harder than we needed to prove a point, to take us seriously. Basically, as the whole thing in the business, you just, do what you're told and do your job. And hopefully maybe you got escalated.
And Sherri Martel, she shows me a lot of confidence. I like that.
Two of the biggest stars that had worked in the AWA that had since gone to the WWF working for Vince McMahon were Jesse Ventura and Curt Hennig.
That's right, McMahon. For once in your life, you're right, and I just might let you keep your job.
Their word carried a lot of weight with Vince, and they both put good words in for Sherri.
As soon as Sherri arrives in the WWF, she is pitted against her former mentor.
Fabulous Moolah, reigning women's champion for quite some time, I might add.
By 1987, Moolah has had the women's world title for most of 30 years, and she's in her mid-50s. And at that point, a change had to be made, and Vince McMahon was the one to be able to pay Moolah what she required to do that, and they put the belt on Sherri Martel.
Moolah well in control of this one, slams her back in. Oh, look at that, Sherri hooked her, takes her over. It's unreal. History been made here.
As a wrestler, that was the peak of Sherri's career.
I alone, me, myself, and I beat the fabulous Moolah. I pinned her 1, 2, 3, right?
That says a lot.
Okay, I'm not finished yet. Rockin' Robin, you can rock and rock and rock around the block all night long, but there will never come a day in your life to where you can defeat me.
They put me on a dark match with Sherri, and then the next thing I know, I'm working in the WWF. We were wrestling, we were working every night, and we were on the road with Hulk Hogan and Jake, Randy Savage, and we were at a different arena every single night, on a plane every single day.
In those days, we were doing 7 days a week. Every week. There were no days off. Kidding me? The women were out there working their tails off. But Sherri probably worked harder than she needed to. She wanted to be a part of the show. A big part.
Pat and I, which was my ex-wife, would turn it on and watch wrestling. Jared was jumping up and down. His mom was on TV. I never even liked it. Took her away. But then again, that was her choice.
My mind was so focused on wrestling, everything else took second. Everything. And that was including my ex, my family, everyone.
Sherri was emotionally wrecked. There was a lot of pain and anger there. Probably from her leaving people behind. But she was close-lipped about all that. And she knew how to keep her nose to the ground and grind.
In those days, the female wrestlers were an attraction. They were a special thing to put on the card. So if any of the female wrestlers wanted to be taken seriously, they had to be accepted in the locker room, and then the guys would have greater appreciation for their work in the ring. And all the guys like Sherri, she was one of the boys, and that was the ultimate compliment in those days that any of the male wrestlers could give one of the girls, is you're just like us. You're tough, you're a partier, you're stiff in the ring, we accept you.
I think she probably could have drank or, snorted them under the table. Absolutely. Whatever Sherri did, she did to the max.
Sherri loved her pot. And so when you get the mix of cocaine and marijuana and then drinking, I don't know how they kept going for 2 or 3 nights. There were nights I wrestled Sherri and she was going on 48 hours. She was never late for a match, though. She always showed up.
I think it was like an outdoor show. I keep looking at her, and you know how when somebody just kind of looks right past you? And I'm like, I don't know if she even sees me. I was down on all fours on the mat, and she threw a kick, and it caught me right on the throat. It was full force. I couldn't breathe. I just remember thinking, oh my God, this is it. I'm gonna die at a state fair in the middle of a wrestling ring.
First of all, you deserved it now. That kick was for all these years later because you were the first one to admit that Sherri was doing coke. So fuck you for that, Robin. Secondly, I know exactly what the fuck she was doing and feeling when she was gasping for that motherfucking air and could not fucking catch it. And oh my God, that is the scariest thing. Because you go, you know, maybe a little 5-7 seconds where you can't, you know, and even the breath that you do take in, you know, it's not really anything going in. So it's like, oh, it's over. It's over. You know, I know that fucking feeling. So, you deserved it, Robin. I'm not going to lie to you right now. You kind of deserved it now, all these years later. So that's your receipt. Boom. So, Sherri was just one of the boys. Sherri was we all know a Sherri, man. We all know a sensational Sherri. You know what I mean? So, I love this one, man. So, remember to subscribe, guys. High Flying Podcast. Let's go. I'm eating the fuck out these sandwiches.
Intoxicated but still performing in the ring, Sherri Martel has kicked Rockin' Robin in the throat, leaving her struggling for breath.
Finally, I was able to get that big breath. Then we got back to the dressing room, and she just grabbed me and gave me the biggest hug, and she knew that it was bad. She did like pot. That was no big deal. But if there was anything else that really impaired you to do your job in the ring, you know, that's when it becomes a problem.
They don't call me the sensational Sherri for nothing. And in a moment, I'm going to show you exactly how sensational I am.
By 1990, Sherri Martel is a dominant force in the WWF as one of its premier female wrestlers. But that is about to change.
Vince McMahon was never fully sold on the idea of, back in those days, of an entire women's division. I think he just decided to wrap it up. He still had Sherri Martel there, and Sherri was able to exhibit the fact that she could do a promo and she was this wild, over-the-top personality. Then Vince figured, heck with women's wrestling, I'm going to put her in the corner of one of my main event male stars and make her more money than she's ever made. Because that's the thing, you could be the world women's champion wrestler and make or you could be the manager for a main event male star in the WWF and make a fortune.
I think Vince McMahon probably saw the same thing everybody else saw, which is a very gifted, athletic, physical woman that was very attractive. The camera loved her, and there's not a microphone she couldn't own. My name is Eric Bischoff, former president of World Championship Wrestling. Grew up as a young man, a fan of Sherri Martel, and had the opportunity to work with her in the 90s.
He likes what he sees.
Back when Sherri was at her peak and managing, the producer would say to you, okay, you're going to be doing this and this, you're going to be doing it on this night, you're going to be in the ring with these two. That's it. Boom. Ready, set, go.
I look in there, what do I see? I see Hulk Hogan laying flat on his back.
She would figure out a way to tweak her personality and her appearance and the way she dressed, the way she acted, to kind of more closely fit the guy she was with while still being, at the root of it, herself.
And indeed, we have a new Macho King, Randy Savage, accompanied, of course, by Queen Sherri.
If you go back and you look at the wrestling world and what the product was during the peak of Sherri's career, I think she had a ridiculously powerful impact on it.
I had no idea that she was really gonna do it that well.
Oh, yeah.
As time went on, she just became very famous.
Please welcome sensational Sherri.
Jared would fly out and go and meet her and a bunch of the wrestlers.
But I was on the road with my mom. That's where I grew up. No, my mom wasn't the moo every day. No, my mom's a legend. And this is how legends were made.
You motherfucker.
Sherri was completely different than what any other female had been presented as in the WWF up to that point in time.
Introducing first the manager, Elizabeth.
Miss Elizabeth was brought in with Randy Savage because she was his real-life wife, and you had Sable and you had Sunny, but they weren't trained wrestlers. Sherri was. Sherri wasn't afraid to get in there and mix it up and do what needed to be done in the finish to get the people on the edge of their seat. She didn't care if she was wearing a $5,000 ball gown. She's going to be down on the floor, choking the guy that her wrestler is opposing.
Ultimate Warrior with sensational Queen Sherri. Down they go.
She was always taking bumps, crazy bumps, big bumps, tall bumps, concrete bumps, right? In a woman's frame, there's a little less sometimes, right? And she was banged up.
I'm sure she had injuries. How bad is the question.
Do you know how she dealt with her pain?
I'm sure she took meds.
If I would have ever opened my mouth and what I saw, I wouldn't have been able to go back and see her. I don't ever miss her if I know it's seeing my mind sober.
There's so much that we put our bodies through on a daily basis, things that God did not intend us to do. And in turn, people find ways to compensate or to get through. I found ways to get through.
Somas are a muscle relaxer that many of the wrestlers began to rely on, and it began to become a problem in wrestling in the late 80s and into the 90s, like a number of other substances did.
It was like candy. It was ready available, and they took the Somas, they took the Vicodins, they took whatever the hell else they took. Sometimes you had doctors that wrote these prescriptions out. It was crazy. I saw it firsthand.
You can believe in the WWF and their new testing policies and procedures.
When the WWE first started drug testing, it was because of the steroid scandal that Vince McMahon got himself into, along with Hulk Hogan and a few of the guys that were really over the top on the steroids. But they were testing for all kinds of street drugs and illegal drugs as well. And Sherri failed a number of times for marijuana.
I got called up to the office, and it was J.J. Dillon, Bruce Pritchard, and Vince McMahon sitting there. And I said, Sherri, your drug test has come back positive again. We have to let you go. What would be the point of getting up, yelling and screaming? I knew I screwed up.
In any wrestling promotion since the dawn of time, if you showed up high and screwed something up, you got fired. Nobody gets sent to rehab. Everybody gets sent packing.
Come on, it could have been worse, man. She could have fucking had cocaine and crack and all that other shit. No, it was fucking weed, man. And look, now everybody does that shit. I love Sherri, man. I don't give a fuck. She's become my new favorite woman of all time wrestler.
Fired from the WWF in 1993, Sherri Martel needs to figure out her next move to stay working in the industry that she loves.
Nobody could hurt me any more than I've hurt myself. When I got released, I went back home and I started making phone calls.
Of all the things I've ever been so excited about in my life is coming to the Parade of Champions.
The same year that she had been let go from the WWF, I brought her down to Knoxville for Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
Sherri Martel giving it to Tammy Finch.
She was the same old Sherri and came in and did a wonderful job for us. But there was one night after one of the shows, I could tell she was slowing down a little bit. And I said, Sherri? Oh, I'm okay. I said, having a cruise on Lake Havasoma. I see. If you're heavily soma'd, not only are you zombified mentally, but your whole body is out of control.
She always had bad back pain, and she sometimes took a little too much. And it was for the pain. It wasn't for any other reason, it was for the pain. It wasn't just to pop a pill.
I don't know.
She was medicating on her own, which had gotten out of hand. That never works out well in the end, does it?
I couldn't see how destructive I was. I thought the drugs made me perform better, and I wasn't able to see what other people saw.
Despite her ongoing issues with pain medication, Sherri returns to the national spotlight with WWF rival World Championship Wrestling.
I am here for a reason, and that is to find a man that can fulfill all of my needs.
I didn't ask Sherri why she was let go from WWE, if she quit or was fired. I didn't know, I didn't ask, and I didn't care. I hired her back in '93 because she was a great talent.
To be led to the ring by Sister Sherri. Wow! From Harlem, New York.
Sherri and Harlem Heat, Booker and Stevie Ray, they looked great together, and they had not had a major spot anywhere before in a big-time promotion or on a major television show, so she kind of gave them credibility that they wouldn't have had because everybody knew who Sherri was.
Sherri's passion and dedication to her career comes at the cost of never having enough time for her son, Jared.
There's many times she held me, begging for my forgiveness, and I would sit there and tell her, "You don't have to beg."
She seemed a little more lost and uncertain.
My body had just gotten to the point, and my brain had gotten to the point to where I just could not do it. I could not perform up to their expectations.
She was let go because she was no longer good on camera. She would show up under the influence of something. I'm guessing it was prescription drugs. Didn't matter to me. She was under something and it was affecting her ability to perform.
You can't fire me because I quit right now.
Oh, wait a minute.
I don't know what took place between Sherri and Eric. Maybe she was taking too many somas. Maybe she wasn't herself. Maybe she wasn't performing in the ring like she was supposed to. However, if that was true, and he acted and said, "I'm just going to get rid of her," then that should have been done twofold on a handful of men. But it wasn't.
After WCW, there was no place to go. At that point in time, Sherri was in her 40s, and younger girls had come along, so I think it probably was the worst thing that happened at that point in time that she lost that spot.
I'd heard it over the grapevine that she was deep into the oxys. They were controlling her life. You medicate. F*** it, I lost my job, I'm just gonna get f***ed up. It's not like there's 20 wrestling companies that you can go to. Sherri spent probably 5 years up there. And that's a great accomplishment, but it's never enough. It's never enough.
As her wrestling career nears its end, Sherri Martel marries her new boyfriend, Robert Schrull.
She had gotten married in 1997, which was during her WCW run. And sometimes when a civilian marries a celebrity, that civilian thinks that celebrity is always going to be a celebrity. And unfortunately, after the WCW run, Sherri was off television, out of the business, and just a normal person. Sherri didn't do normal well.
She was still in a lot of pain. Sadly, I think if she had another outlet and it got whatever she needed, from what I understand, it was a surgery, but she couldn't afford it, I don't think she would ever gotten hooked on pills.
At some point, when you get addicted to prescription pills or anything else, you're taking it because you have to, whether you're injured or not, because you're addicted. But I don't think that her husband was any benefit to her in that particular situation.
Robert was always trying to put a wedge in between my mother and the family, taking her away from us. The last time I saw my mother was the night she was inducted to the Hall of Fame.
I love her. Because she fucking deserves it.
In 2006, after several years away from the wrestling business, Sherri becomes the second woman to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame.
You know, the amazing thing about this business is I had the ability to walk beside some of the most wonderful people in the world.
This was her time to shine, and she spoke from the heart.
And then I met a man named Eric Bischoff. And we all know where he's at now, right? Woo! Out of here! Whoa! Oh no! He's here! Damn, I thought you were gone.
Everything my mom ever worked for, I was just happy she was alive to visit. That was the path of her to it.
My son Jared, my husband Robert, my best friend Kathy Fitzpatrick. I love you, baby.
She didn't look at it as a great occasion because that meant, you know, it's all over. That's one of the hardest things in the world for a lot of people is to find your place in life when all you've ever known is wrestling and all that goes with it. That's where a big part of the struggle can be.
Although it seems her career might be over, Sherri spends the next year optimistic for her future in the business.
I was on the phone with her. She was in the best mood ever. She was sitting on the front porch with her mom, drinking sweet tea, playing with the puppy they just got, and said to me, I have some news to tell you, but I don't want to jinx it. From what I had heard, they were going to bring Sherri back, get her operation, get her backs fixed, and they were going to have her train the women.
I know she wanted to go back to the WWE. Whether they were receptive or not to giving it to her, I don't know, and I guess we won't ever find out at this point.
9:30, June 15th. I heard that my mother passed away.
I believed her sister or somebody called me. And that's when I got in my vehicle and drove to Alabama so I could be there.
And how did you feel?
Empty. Empty.
Didn't deserve to die the way she did.
I wish I would have met her, man. I wish I would have met Sensational Sherri, man.
Sherri's sudden death at age 49 causes local Alabama police to open an investigation.
She survived in the rocking chair on the porch with my grandmother.
It just seems so ironic that she was so happy the night before. And 10 o'clock the next morning, I get this phone call.
Following a brief investigation, Sherri Martel's death is ruled an accidental overdose.
I knew she could go to extremes, but I guess I did not know that it was just an ongoing, life-threatening problem. It floored me.
Regrettably, the addiction struggles that plagued Sherri's life are also on display at the funeral.
I know we had a few people there that were probably coked out of their mind and drugged out and whatnot. I think Jake was so out of his freaking mind. Oh my God. And I think he was leaning over the casket. He was just out of it.
I remember Stevie Ray being there and Booker T. But other than that, I can't remember anything about it. I mean, I was at my very lowest right then. They asked me to have a few words, and I did. And I remember looking at her saying, "How dare you leave me behind?" Right, I was angry because I thought we were friends for forever, not counting dying. We were just alike. We both came up hard, and we both had to fight and scratch and claw for everything. She was one of my loves, man. You know, she was somebody that I identified with and somebody that I cherished. I honored our friendship. I honored her. Always will.
Sherri was my best friend. I don't think anybody could ever take that friendship away from us. Even if she's gone, I know she's with me.
I don't think you can think about women in wrestling and not put Sherri Martel at the very top of your list.
A lot of the fans loved and respected her. Maybe some of them didn't respect her enough because they didn't know the work that it took and the perseverance and the dedication it took for her to get there. This is a picture that Sherri gave to me at a fan fest like 20 years ago or whatever. She signed to me. It says, "To Jimmy Cornette, remember always, I was your first. Loving you forever, Sherri Martel."
I wish I
And boy, she
Sherri,
looked good.
Man.
But everybody in the business had a high opinion of Sherri and her talent.
These are letters that my mother wrote to me over the years.
Never held anything against her except for the fact that she left. Jared, to me, he's special. And I do what I can to keep him going.
My dad is a good provider. My mom and my stepmom loved each other. She couldn't have picked a better person to raise me. Can I have her come up to that news?
That's my odds. He's my everything.
This is why I'm here today. Sherri was my mother, but this was her tattooed brother.
She used to tell me all the time, I would never find someone as good as you to take care of my son. She was awesome. She really was. She chose her career, you know?
My mom, that's all she knew, and I don't hate her for it at all.
I sacrificed so much of my life, my family time, and I'd like to know that the mistakes that I made, people won't remember me so much for those, but for the good that I tried to do. I hope people will look back and maybe learn something from my mistakes.
I'm so mad she's not here with us, man. She was so beautiful, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love you, Sherri. And there you have it, man. Dark Side of the Ring, Sherri. Sensational Sherri, man. Sherri Martel. So beautiful. So full of life, man. Tearjerker twice. Both times, bro. Watched this already twice. Both times was tearjerkers. So, man, shouts out to everybody that's subscribed, man. Sorry that it came late, but, you know, it is what it is. So, go subscribe. Go wash your hair. Use deodorant, man. You already know what it is. High Flying Podcast. Let's go.
The Big Bag Network presents the High Flying Podcast, where we dive off the top higher than RVD and Matt Riddle's love child, with your host, Biggie Bag Johnny. Subscribe to the channel and stay up to date on all things wrestling related. So grab your belts and bongs, bad bitches with thongs, and watch whatever episode that you want to put on. It's the High Flying Podcast with Biggie Bag Johnny. Let's go.
This is the Deathmatch King, Matt Cardona. You're listening to the High Flying Podcast with Big Bad Johnny. They said they were going to pay me. Where's my fucking money? What's up, guys? It's Brian Cage. At the High Flying Podcast with Big Bad Johnny. Apple of the Dawn. I got it right this time. So everybody who missed the first couple blocks, you didn't just did. All right, check it out. High Flying Podcast. Who better?
Thank you for all the doors that you opened up, so we got to bust through the windows, man.
When in 2004, Eddie Guerrero came up to me and thanked me for opening up the door for the Hispanics in the WWF. That meant a lot to me when he told me that.
Absolutely.